All right, everyone, it's 9:06. We're going to call the meeting to order. This is day one of the budget hearings. We're kicking off a month-long budget mania, budget madness, I should say. And we're going to start with the first selectman and the town administrator. Welcome, Mr. Fred Camillo and Kate Bush, and also Wendy Zhao, senior analyst in your office. And I thought we'd start just by noting for the record that this is being recorded by GCTV. It's being broadcast live. No sound. There's no sound? Hang on.
I hear it, David.
Okay.
Yeah, like this.
We're checking on a technical matter.
It's working.
Maybe Don's not getting
Don might not be picking
Don
you up.
might not be getting it. Let's just
Oh,
get a, let's get a,
That's an at-home viewer.
recording before.
Well, it'd be an interesting video without the sound.
That'd be better.
everyone needs to lip read.
Well, we could just add the sound we want afterwards.
Little AI, put some words in that didn't exist.
I get to see the attack letters, but not being transparent.
Right.
All right, do I need to start over, or you think we're good? You're good. Okay. So I want to welcome everyone to day one of the budget hearings. We're going to start with the first selectman and the town administrator, Mr. Camillo and Kate Bush and Wendy Zhao. And I also want to welcome Joan Lynch, our comptroller, Agnes Kawai, and Leo Bashira from our office. Ken Borsek is also here, executive assistant to the first selectman. So welcome, everyone. And with that, I am going to start with giving the town administrator and the first selectman an opportunity. We all were at the presentation on the 27th, but I thought it would be good for the record to sort of give us an overarching view of how you tackled the budget, both operating and capital, as well as your priorities. And if you don't mind, we're going to make this relatively informal. If people have questions as we go along, if it's okay, we'll entertain them at that time. Is that good?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
So we start the process probably in October. We start meeting with department heads to review their proposed capital projects. And we asked them a lot of questions. I know it's a big part of the budget. This year, we had a form we asked them to fill out in advance of those meetings to give me a better sense of what they were doing, what they were asking for. Included in that was, does it support one of the goals of the Board of Selectmen? What problem are you addressing by doing this project, or what opportunity are you addressing? Why did you choose this option? What are the other things that you could have done? Do we have to do this for federal laws, to comply, or anything like that? We asked them about, does it address a public health or safety need? Are there grant dollars available? When did you get the estimate that you used for this? And how did you get the estimate? Who did you get it from? Because that was a thing that came up with one of the RTM subcommittees, that they had a lack of confidence in some of these estimates. They felt that some of them were very old. So actually, as we went through the process, a couple times we got ones that, somebody said, oh, I got it in 2024 from this person. I said, well, that's too old. You've got to go back and get a new update. So it was, pretty long process. We went through and, told them which ones we thought we would be supporting, which ones we thought we, maybe push off. And then about a month later or so, we start going through the operating budget. And I tend to look at the expenditures, or the request. Finance department runs me a report so I can look at multiple years. And I look at their requests compared to the current budget, and also compared to the prior year actuals. And I focus in more on the ones where the request exceeds either the current budget or prior year actuals by a certain percentage. Because it says to me that, maybe we don't need that much money. And one thing I did focus on this year with departments a lot was employee education and tuition. I believe that training our employees on a regular basis is really important for the town, for the town's people. that our people are up to date on the latest tools, the latest trends. And I noticed that a number of departments weren't spending their money. And I really highlighted that with them, is like, you need to spend it. I won't cut you this year, but if I don't see you spending it this year, next year it's going to be on the chopping block.
Kate, I don't mean to interrupt, but just a question. Aren't they required in certain departments to have mandatory number of hours of training? Or is everyone complying with the minimum requirements, if that's the case?
Yes, where they're required to have minimum, mandatory training, yes, they are compliant. But things like, many departments, you could just be going and learning about your software, learning about the latest trends in your profession. Like, I'm not legally required to have any kind of training, but I hold a designation as a certified public finance officer. So I go every year to get my training and then keep on top of all the trends that impact government finance. And I think that applies. There are a lot of departments where you don't have to be getting a certain number of credit hours, but it's really good for you to go and get updated. And then, we did some moving around of money where we found that, departments were traditionally under budget in certain areas and over budget in certain areas, and we actually did a lot of moving around. I think department heads did a very good job of trying to stay within the guidelines that had been established back in, by your predecessor board. But some were over, and, some, due to things that are happening in their industry, or they're trying to do something new, trying to keep up with trends, needing to hire new people, like in the police department or in the HR department. So you will see some that are a little bit higher increase, but I felt it was important for the residents, for the government, that we support those. And then with the capital, that was just, when we got back to it, that's just a long process of moving things around, trying to balance out the 5-year capital plan, looking at what the priorities are, but trying not to have wild swings from one year to the next in terms of what we're requesting. There were some pretty big numbers in this plan: $40 million for the rink, $55 million for a pool, $43 million for Riverside School. Those are just about big numbers, and trying to move them around. Like, the Riverside School and the pool were originally proposed in the same year. So you had $98 million of capital, which is more sometimes than we have for the whole year. So trying to ease that burden on the mill rate. So we moved things around. We did some negotiating with departments. We moved things out. They might not be so happy. You might see some wanting to come in and trade to move things up and, talk to us, but, we might be okay with that. But that was the goal, was to try and provide a balance and maintain the first selectman's priorities. So,
Yeah, and I want to thank you all for all the work that you're doing and have done, and certainly all the work that Kate has put in with the department heads. Obviously, I could not do that without them. And even some of the things that, we spoke about a lot of things going into this, but she hit the ground running, and before I could even get to some things, she had already researched it. So it was made it a lot easier. But she's right, we did ask to move some things around. I'll certainly get into it in the capital when the time comes through your questioning, but some things are more urgent than others. And I think what's happened at least the 6 years that I've been in office is the school projects have really pushed the town projects out of the way, and that's not fair to the rest of the town. So we're trying to figure out a way to get everything done, but to make sure the mill rate does not explode. And I think that's why with this current BET, looking at ways to compromise and, looking at the 5-year, stretching it out, looking at 10 years, and knowing full well that they can change from year to year because of unforeseen incidents with buildings or other things. I think we're all kind of on the same page, which is I think, refreshing.
If I, just two more things I want to add. One, in the presentation, we referred to an estimated mill rate for next year. I want to make sure that the public understands that that was based on the old grand list. We did not have the new grand list available to us. So we do fully expect that mill rate, the number to drop when the budget is applied to the new grand list. And without Wendy, a lot of this doesn't happen. She's there taking notes at all the meetings. She's working with the department heads. She's making sure that things get submitted and that the numbers all agree. So Wendy's a huge part of making this happen.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Fred. Should I open up to questions? Does anyone have a question about the overall process? Harry?
Yeah, last year we talked about an outside grant consultant. Can you talk a little bit about the grant process, what's going on with that and where we are?
So we did hire somebody. For a small amount. And we have sent him priorities that departments submitted to us. So far, we haven't been able to find anything that is out there that, would be based on, what we've submitted to him. So, we can always send him new ideas. And he researches, he keeps an eye out for what might be available to us. And then if we do find something that for an additional fee, would help us write the grant.
So this is an outside person, not a hire?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And is there incentive for him, or is it just fee-based?
For the searching, it's just fee-based, but if he finds something that we can apply for, he would be, basically, most grants would allow us to pay for the administrative costs of writing the grant out of the grant. So yeah, there is an incentive for him to find something for us and help us write it.
Does this include federal and state grants, or is it more?
Yes.
Okay, it does. Okay, excellent.
Yeah, the landscape, unfortunately, in the last year has changed a little bit with that. We were a little more hopeful last year, but that could change, and he's certainly going to continue to look.
Joe?
Oh, thank you. On the grant topic that Harry brought up, I remember when working with the schools, many of the philanthropic organizations in town would come to me and say, we found all these possible opportunities, and the school could have found them themselves after doing a little research, but these multiple philanthropic organizations felt that if they partnered with us because of the status we had, that they would be able to get grants that we don't find. So I didn't look at this on the outside of school side of things. So I assume with Harry's question that sort of exists. So the incentive to find these grants should be certainly there. If it certainly weren't in schools. Is the same opportunity there, or do we see it differently?
There are some, but plain old government is, people don't want to give us as much money as they want to give to education. So where you find things more be environmental, like, Long Island Sound Futures, those kind of places. We don't always qualify because of our wealth levels. But yeah, I don't think the opportunities for governments are quite the same as they are for education.
But do we think there are these stones that are unturned that we should be harvesting that possibly we might be? I know the trend of such grants might be trending in the down way rather than the up way, but are we missing anything by not having more concentration on that?
That's possible. I can't answer that for sure, but I think it's possible.
Yeah, but it's a great question. For example, through WestCog, a lot of things we've found we end up not qualifying for. It's frustrating because these things would fit, but there's requirements, and so, as Kate said, our financial status kind of pushes us out of some of the opportunities.
I suppose a good problem to have. Thank you.
It is.
Doug?
So, and just, can you talk, how long has this outside grant consultant been in place?
Just since the beginning of this fiscal year.
Okay, and then just, based on what I'm sure he or she had some expectations, you all had some expectations. Has they or have you all been surprised by the lack of opportunity that's been found?
A little, but not entirely. Like I said, we don't get the same opportunities. I think there's a lot more money out there for education.
And then I guess finally it would be, what, at what point do you think that we're not going to be able to find things and that this is an initiative that made sense, but doesn't make sense to continue?
Well, it's a relatively low cost. So, I think we need to give it at least the full year. Could we find more things if we had somebody who was an employee and dedicated to that? Maybe. But I'm not sure that we'd be able to justify that level of salary and benefits.
Any other overarching questions? Fred, I don't know what your time schedule is, but can we go right to capital since you're here?
Absolutely.
Actually, sorry, can I then ask some overarching questions that are not grant related?
Yes, that's why I just asked. Okay,
Yeah,
go
great.
ahead, Doug. So we're
So
going,
Fred, I guess, as you said, when you opened up the process and started it, one of the questions when the capital came in were whether or not they were aligned with the goals of the Office of the First Selectman. Can you just specify what those goals are that you're trying to accomplish?
Sure, I mean,
No, go ahead.
are you talking about specific projects and things? Because over, the 30,000-foot view, certainly we focused a lot on pedestrian safety and public safety. A few years ago, we worked hard to get almost a nearly $3 million grant to go through a year of approvals to finally have a few people petition the RTM, and they kicked it back, and we had to give the money back, and another municipality took it. And we ended up having to do those improvements on our own dime. So, we don't completely control the process because it's a very decentralized form of government. It gets very frustrating at times, but, you have to stick with it, and you have to, work a little bit harder with a lot of these grants. That's why I've been really focused the last 6 years on public-private partnerships, because we seem to have a little bit more, I think, opportunity there because of our status with some of the grants. We fall outside of, what qualifies us for it. But if you're talking about specific capital projects, I can go there.
You said it was kind of a filtering mechanism that you used.
Right. So last year, during this year, the Board of Selectmen adopted specific goals. Preserve our community's historic architectural characteristic and sense of place, develop housing opportunities for the future, support top-quality educational facilities, sustain and improve our natural environment and landscape, maintain economic vitality and thriving commercial centers, provide the best quality infrastructure, municipal facilities, cultural institutions, and health services, public safety, provide cost-effective services, transparent government, and employee productivity and morale. So they're on the Board of Selectmen website, and there are sub-goals underneath, or, like how we would achieve those. So those are the goals that we were specifically looking to see if the capital projects met or helped us achieve one of those goals.
Understood. And then just one last one. Fred, you mentioned, and I know we'll get into the specific capital budget, but you made a comment that there are town projects that have been delayed. Can you just highlight, 2 or 3 that you feel have been delayed for multi-years that were highest priority as you went to put together this budget?
Well, certainly the rink, by delaying it 2 years, when we put together the first rink committee, they did a lot of research and used a lot of research that had been done in the previous 50 years. And what they recommended, we had some pushback. So we put together a task force that Matt chaired and did a terrific job. And we put together representatives from groups that had issues with it. And after 2 years, another 2 years, they came up with the same exact recommendation. What changed was the price. So now, we were talking in the 20s, and now we're in the 40s. And I think it's we see this all over. It's not just unique to Greenwich. I bring up the example of Palm Beach Gardens. They're building a rink now down there that Wayne Gretzky's involved with. That started out in the 20s, and I think it's at $43 million now, and they're still not done. So we appreciate and encourage the thorough vetting. That is a great thing to do, and we should never lose that and ask the good questions. But we just need to get to yes a little bit quicker than 2 years, because the clock ticks and the price goes up. That's just one example.
Can you just give 1 or 2 more?
Well, I mean, I'm sorry?
Roger Sherman.
Roger Sherman Baldwin Park,
Okay.
again, that's another one. One of my favorite all-time ones was, we just opened up the new Civic Center. That's a 30-year in the making project that when the former first selectman, Tom Ragland, put together a task force, Doug, Joe Siciliano sat down, he goes, and he was right, because we were going over it. He estimated it was about 80% of what's in there now was proposed in 1997. But of course, even up until this one, there were still people saying they wanted more, and they were trying to stop it. So that took 30 years. I mean, that's way too long. That is way too long.
All right, if you don't mind, I'd just like to touch on a couple capital projects, and I'm going to ask, like Fred, I'm going to ask you the 30,000-foot view, and Kate, I just might ask you a little more detailed question.
Sure.
And I realize some of these come in other departments, but Byram River Bridge Replacement Project requires a lot of coordination with New York State, Army Corps of Engineer. Can you just give us your perspective? Is that going the way you want it to? Is this likely to happen in this year? This is something that's been in the capital plan for a while, and I guess I'm asking you, is this really going to happen this year?
Yeah, well, they're supposed to start this year. And I want to salute the Congressman's office, Jim Himes, and we've attended many meetings, and we were told it was originally going to be about 5.5, almost 6 years. We pushed and pushed, and we got it down to about, I think, 4.5 years now. But of course, you're right. It's not just the town of Greenwich and the village of Portchester. It's the county of Westchester. It's the state of New York. It's the Army Corps of Engineers. There's a lot of jurisdictions here. But we're trying to get, it's right on the border there. And basically what the project is to widen the bridge and make it a little higher so that it allows a flow of water to go. And that will help. It's not going to completely solve the Byram River flooding, which has been going on for at least 100 years. It will help a lot. And so that we're on top of it with them. We meet fairly regularly with them, and we're probably due for a meeting, soon. But the congressman has been very helpful with that one.
A follow-up question on that. New York State's paying for their quarter, but the town of Greenwich has to pay for our quarter. Why isn't the state paying for a quarter of this? It's a state road.
That is a good question, Harry, but it was the deal we got. Listen, it was a $35 million. We had talked about this for a long time, figure out ways to help the people and the folks in Pembroke deal with flooding coming down from Pembroke, which we've, I think, solved that through town money, which was great. But the river one is a bigger problem, and, I'm just happy we got the money we have. The state's another issue, but certainly it's a good question because it is a state road, but it is a town issue. It's the town properties that are getting flooded out, so I guess that's why we ended up with a quarter of it. But I'll take the New York and federal money to there, so that helps us a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're only paying a quarter.
And Army Corps is
Yeah.
paying half. Yeah.
Yeah.
And has all the paperwork been signed? I know usually that's part of the logjam in the process.
Ooh, that's a good
Do you
question.
know?
I think we're going to have to ask Jim Michael that.
Okay, we'll add that to the list. Anything else on Byram River?
No.
I'd like to just talk about the rink since Mr. Camillo brought it up. That's okay? And maybe this is a question for Kate. I appreciate your comments, Fred, that, this has been delayed. But I think it was good to have the process and to go through it and make sure everyone was heard and fully vetted. But the question I have is really, is the 41.2, that includes some design, A&E, and construction?
Yes.
Is the construction likely to happen? Is some of this because of we do have a lot of big projects, and we don't want to, is this some of it that we're trying to smooth out our capital plan, or what is your assessment of what's realistic?
I think realistically, we could get going within fiscal '27. We already had plans. They are going to need to be adjusted for the alternate location. But we will need the full appropriation to be ready to go when we're ready to put it out to bid and sign a contract. I would be concerned about delaying it because you have a $55 million school project projected for next fiscal year, a $43 million school project projected for the year after that. So are you going to have the appetite to have a year where there's 90 million plus committed to 2 projects in, one of those years? I fear that if we don't get on it this year, it's going to end up being pushed back 3 or 4 years.
And we do, obviously, we have to appropriate the whole amount, and it may be a little more, you have to be honest, it may be more than $41 million ultimately. But I have reached out to a couple people, and I can tell you there is definitely an anchor donor that's well-known that wants in on it. And Matt and I will be meeting again shortly, because we're going to shoot higher. We're going to shoot higher than what we, the money that we got so far for the Civic Center, which was great. But I think we have to try and do a little bit better here because of all the pressure we're getting with these other capital projects. So, and there's a lot of user groups that are really interested in this. And you saw the overwhelming support for this rink from the community. So I'm hoping that, we're going to work hard at getting that number up there. So eventually, even if it's 43, 44 million, we hope to have a significant amount of that raised privately through naming opportunities, and even keeping the name Hamel on the rink. There's lots of other opportunities there that we're going over.
So a follow-up question. Is it important for prospective philanthropic donors to have the town fully commit to the project? Is that an important part of enticing people to? I remember with the Byram, with the pool project, with the junior league, it was important for the town to demonstrate that we were all in, and that made it easier to raise private funds. Is that,
Yeah.
is
I
that
mean,
your
They're not going to want to
expectation?
commit millions of dollars to a project that we're not committed to.
So, yeah, exactly. And even the pool project, which came out of left field for us this year, we'd heard rumblings, but
Different pool, Greenwich High pool.
Greenwich High Pool, yeah, I'm sorry. So even though I think we can push that out a little bit, and I mentioned it the other night, I don't know if anybody heard it, but I did mention that, because there's other projects I think that are a little bit more, that have more of a pressing need. And to that end, I've spoke with other entities in town that maybe have Olympic-sized swimming pools that have committed to trying to work, so if there would be a place for them to work, to swim, and have meets and all that. So we're working on all that stuff, just to move some things around. But yeah, but I did say that we put $4 million in for A&E and design to show that commitment. And that's one, I think the Board of Ed relaxed their policies now, so that we'll be able to raise some money for that pool. And I've heard some numbers already, which is great. And that's probably one that will raise significant amount, because it'll be more than 55 million by the time all is said and done. And I think a lot of that's going to have to be raised privately, because that's a lot of money. I mean, that's, just a few years ago, that would have been, a school project.
So for both of these projects, I'm thinking back to the Eastern Greenwich Civic Center before we got the Cohen Family Foundation donation. Parks and Rec did a business plan, if you will, a document that said, this is how we're going to use the facility, these are what we think are the naming rights. Is that type of document, could we ask if that is likely to be created so we can, really clearly be transparent with the public? There are these various naming opportunities, we have these needs, just to make it more of a
It's a great question.
black and white question.
No, it's a great question, and needs to be repeated over and over again, so I'd like people to hear that, so thank you for asking. Yeah, Matt Deschamps and I are meeting on that and going over what is, a friend of mine helped do the chart for the Civic Center. She called it a chip chart. She raises, she's a professional fundraiser. And it's like, what do you want? Do you want, naming opportunities for the sheet of ice, for the locker rooms, for the arena, not the rink, because there's lots of different ways. I always talk about, if you look at the Baltimore Orioles where they play, and it's Oriole Park at Camden Yards, right? So it's, it could be the Erickson Rink at Kelly Arena, right? So you try to incorporate, so we're not looking to rip names off. Even Dorothy Hamill won a gold medal in '76. She learned to skate in Riverside and Binney Park. No one wants to take that name off. So it makes it a little bit harder, because it would have been another naming opportunity, but we're looking at other things, the stands, right? We'll even name the penalty box. I mean, we're looking for anything.
That one's going to Joe Kelly.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
Sarah, just to follow up on that, so that talks about some of the capital offsets, but what about the operating plan of the rink and how that will change or evolve? Kind of number one, if we have this new and improved facility, and then two, what kind of long-term commitments are we able to get from our partners to rent ice time so we have confidence in the business model of the rink going forward?
Yeah, I'll take it real quick and I'll turn it over to Kate. So when we got into office in 2019, there was a lot of complaints about the rink and just the way it was run. It was run in an old-fashioned way, and we said if we were going to raise all this money for a new rink, it had to be a different model. We've since hired a new rink manager there that everybody loves and raves about. So that is good. We knew we had to go a different way, and also we also found out that when the rink was built in '72, planning and zoning allowed for hours of operation that was never even used. The hours of operation could be a lot longer there, and it just never was, there was never really, I think, an in-depth plan, Doug. And I think you're absolutely right. We have to have, when we do these things, like with the Cohen Civic Center, the schedule's full. And you look at things a little bit different. How do you not only maximize the operational for revenue, but also how do you make it easier for people and allow more public use without aggravating neighbors and violating any local ordinances?
So would that be a project for Parks and Rec to work on the operating document or the operating plan?
I already wrote it down. They need
Okay,
to do that.
all right.
And I think, we need to be mindful of balancing the needs of the school sports teams with the club teams and with the general public.
Yeah, absolutely. Harry?
Yeah, just a footnote on the operations of the rink. And talking to Joe Siciliano, his objective is to have it operate similar to the golf course. So it'd be a self-sufficient
It should be.
entity.
Yeah, there's no reason why it shouldn't be.
Yeah, no reason why with a new facility it shouldn't be. Further in the rink, when you're revising the plans, one of the hot buttons was the food court. Is that going to be put back in? And the second question is, where are we on MI? Because the planning and zoning approved MI and then the RTM did away with it. You're going to have to go back through the process again?
Yeah, I think we're in much stronger shape this time because as the chairwoman said, we took another look at it and the vetting, and it was the right move, even though it cost us a couple years. It was the right thing because I think more people are confident now in it. As far as the food court, yeah, there was a contingent that really wanted it in there, and when we first started talking like 5 years ago, I think the department was a little nervous about the costs, and they were hearing from people, even on the RTM, about the cost. So they figured we'd just put a hole in a wall and have a food truck, which I thought was ridiculous. And so we backed off because there was a fear of the escalation, the cost escalation. And it turned out that came back to bite us, right? That was one of the things that so we said never again. So there's going to be, and that's another naming opportunity, but absolutely, because if you're going to spend millions of dollars, don't cut corners to the point where people are going to say, why didn't you just spend a couple more dollars and do it the right way? I hate to bring up old things, but we've cut corners in the past and it's come back to haunt us.
So I gather you're going to
Pools
have to
and
go
gyms.
before P&Z again?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Joe?
Thank you. Fred, you're aware of this. Kate, you may not be. I'm famous for dopey questions, so I'm going to ask one. You had made a statement. You said that if we have the money allocated for this project, that it would be easier to raise money from outside philanthropic enterprises, groups that want to maybe have naming rights or something to that effect. I know that most people don't pay extra when they pay their taxes. And why, if they think that the town is willing or okay to pay or the money's allocated to pay, why would they think that they want to donate money in addition to that? Because I know that we take money from them every year, and most people reluctantly pay their taxes, and they go, grumble, grumble, here's the money. Why would they want then to pay if they know we have the money that they've already paid into that? I'm on my university's board of directors, and it's very easy to raise money for a school because you're not billing the alumni. You're asking them for donations, and they're willingly giving that. Whereas taxes are being charged to people against their will, and they're not, so that's the question. Why, if the money's allocated, would they be willing to pay, rather than if we're trying to raise the money, we don't have it yet, can you help us do that?
I'll just say two possibilities. One is naming opportunities, and two is for legacies, memories. I've had a good friend of mine, I grew up with a great hockey player in town, had passed away, unfortunately, a few years ago, and his wife's a great friend of mine, and she wants to do something at the rink in memory of where he spent a lot of time and captained a lot of teams here in town. And I think that's one way, Joe, but also other people just like leaving a legacy and having a naming opportunity. Those are the two top ones, I would think, unless Kate has other.
Tax deductions. I'm not kidding, and I think, my comment was that they want to know that we're committed to the project. So fully allocating it, yes, is one way to demonstrate that we are committed to the project.
Well, that's the point, is that if we have the money, why would somebody want to give the money? Is why the incentive for the private-public partnership to participate, if we have the money, is the question.
So if we short the appropriation because we think we're going to get donations, I think that Fred answered that, it's the naming opportunity, it's the legacy, it's something that they leave behind when they go.
Well, I'll make one final point. It's more of a broad point. I know myself and Fred talked about, before I got involved in doing what I'm doing here, is to try to find the answer yes, rather than try to find out no when asking for money for projects. If we try to get them all done, it's going to be too much money. If we try to get all of them done and ask for help, the best way of asking for help would be the best way to get to yes. And so I'm just trying to think, if we're saying, okay, we're choosing this one, saying this one is deferred, we're choosing this one, I don't think that's necessarily the best route to getting to yes. I think the best route to getting to yes is trying to get everything done as quickly as possible, finding yes, which will be the goal, but asking for help in finding yes. So I don't know, I'm probably too far off the mark on that, but thanks.
Well, I would just add that I think that's exactly the conversation we're having, is what do we need to appropriate? And then in parallel, you've already gotten some interest from the community, and the town has had a long history of private-public partnerships, maybe on a smaller scale. But I would say when we did the Cohen Eastern Greenwich Civic Center appropriation, we didn't have that money up front, and it came in afterwards. So I think it worked. But I think it's all about communication and a process,
So, yeah, legally, you need to appropriate the full amount that you're going to spend.
right.
Everything we're going to write a check for, you need an appropriation for. What are your revenue sources? So your revenue sources can be taxes, can be donations, can be bonding. But you are going to need, if we expect to spend $40 million in constructing a rink, you need to appropriate $40 million. We can offset that with a revenue source that is not taxes, but you still need to appropriate the $40 million.
Thank you.
Doug?
Just coming back, and I know you said you'd follow up with Parks and Rec, but what do you think is the appropriate timeline for us in the community to expect this operating plan to be more fully fleshed out?
I don't want to commit their department to anything. My thought would be I'd want something to present to you before the end of the month, before your decision day. So you at least have a skeleton. But certainly before we go out to bid.
Got it. Before the end of the month would be amazing.
It'd be amazing, but I can't promise you that.
I understand.
That's not my,
Who are the Parks and Rec liaisons? Give them a heads up. Anything else on the rink? Matt, do you want to add anything? Thank you. Can I move to Roger Sherman Baldwin Park unless there's anything before?
Nope, that sounds good.
Does that sound good? All right, so in this year's budget, there's a proposed allocation of $1 million, followed by $10 million in '28. And so help us understand how you see the project plan unfolding, and what are the initial steps? And now I see that there's a task force for the Arch Street building. So sort of, do we need, for example, like we did with Havemeyer, do we need a facilities assessment of Arch Street? Is that part of this project now? Where are we with, what does the Parks and Rec Trees Department need? Just help us map this out for us, to help us understand this appropriation.
Yeah, and I'll try to uncomplicate it. So the building itself, Arch Street, had nothing to do with the RFP we did 5 years ago for Roger Sherman Baldwin Park, which the design is still out there, which can be changed. But that is something, what's held that up is not so much the $11 million, which will come down. Again, have had conversations with 2 foundations that are interested in, and there's a third that I'd like to talk to. So I think that should come down significantly. It will, but the problem has been relocating that Parks and Recreation operation, which, as I think it's, every time I get an opportunity to say it, I'll repeat it, that we're parking trucks on one of the most expensive pieces of land probably in the state or on the East Coast, and we're changing oil there. It doesn't make sense. And we want to restore a view of the harbor that we haven't had since the 50s. So we think the transfer station is the best possible place for that. And not only getting the, if we did redo that's, the money that we need to do for the transfer station, that's the hard part, right? Because no one's going to give us a donation for that. We're looking, Mark Boughton came down, who's a former mayor of Danbury, who's in the, I was going to say the Malloy, it was just the Lamont administration, and he was pretty sure there was money available because we have other trucks that were parking in flood zones, and he said, but when I followed up with him, he really wasn't as gung-ho as when he came down here that day, but we could still pursue that, but I think we have to do it anyway, because not only would it get the trucks and allow us to get rid of those garages on the water, but we also have an operation on the Mianas River that people complain. You know where the Dave Tice Bridge is, where the flags are? We've had some beautiful renderings of what we could do with that building, with a little cafe on the water and boat slips there to take advantage of being on the water, on the Mianas River. And we're parking trucks there. We have offices. So that would be another place we could relocate things. We also have some trucks in a flood zone over on South Water Street, which is what Mark Boughton thought was a key to trying to find some grant money to relocate that. So the whole thing is, what's holding this up is the reluctance to fund the transfer station, which we've been talking about since the 1980s. DPW does know what to touch and what not to touch there, because there is some contamination. Obviously, you don't want to touch, just in case, if you touch something, you own it. So we want to stay away from that and be as healthy and environmentally conscious of that as possible. And we know pretty much what we can do, and there's a rendering about how the flow would be so much easier, and also allow us to be able to keep track of people who may be going counterclockwise and going through some go through the back way sometimes. There's not enough people to really monitor all of that there, unless we want to put a bunch of more bodies down there, which is probably going to, push their budgets up, obviously push their budgets up a little bit. So there's a way to do this, and I think, again, if we had done this 40 years ago, maybe we wouldn't be talking about that, but I think a time has come, we have to get that done. And then again, that opens up a lot of opportunities to really utilize the water and realize the potential of our water spots. Not every municipality in the country has land on a river or in a harbor, right? And it's a nice thing to have. And so, when you bring up the task force for Arch Street, what do we want to see there? So that's why we want the public to say, what's the best use of that land that's on, and that building that's on the water, right? I met with with Elliot, a very good architect the other night, who's going to address this task force with some really good ideas about how to make that spectacular. And, and well, I'm not going to start throwing out ideas, but we just think it's going to be a really amazing opportunity for the town.
So just to clarify, so if I understand you, some of the million is really for the Holly Hill Master Design Project. So you need to figure out how to design that, or is that part of, I think it's 26 million that's in a later year for Holly Hill?
Yeah, they
I'm trying to chunk it up to see how much, I know they have a plan from CD Smith, but I think it's from like 2012, so
Right,
I don't
and
know.
I will let DPW respond to that, but they do have a plan there, and I don't know how much it would change, but certainly, as Kate said, you want to make sure everything is updated and look at all possibilities, but I know they have a plan there.
And then is there any other uses for updating the design that you currently have for the park, or is that current in your view? I'm just trying to understand how the $1 million would be allocated.
Oh, I can't even remember.
To update the plan.
Yeah, when we selected that firm to give us the plans, the renderings for Roger Sherman, there were some other ones that we really liked. So we met with them every 2 weeks. It was during the pandemic. We would met via Zoom. And we would say, hey, we would take things that we saw and other things, and they would incorporate it into it. So that's why I was saying it's not, we can change it up too. We also wanted to make sure that gatherings and events like the town party, which reached out to us when they saw this, to make sure that there's room for stages and things like that, so we could still use that park for what people really love it for. But just I think it's a great plan as is, but people may look at it and say, hey, we can actually improve upon it. So yeah, that is certainly, we want to make sure that's updated. Again, that's 5 years old now.
Joe?
Thank you. Fred, you know a lot about the history of the town, so I'm going to ask you a question. Who was the knucklehead that decided to put the parking garages down by the water, changing the oil, and do you know who that knucklehead is who decided that some years ago?
If I knew the person that worked in it, I would just, because his family's probably still there, I don't want to mention that, but certainly we've, it's funny because we talk about this all the time, Joe. The town has been so well run over the decades, but everybody knows the mistakes, right? No one's perfect. None of us are. So we always try to avoid and not be that guy or that woman that made a decision that they're going to look back 50 years later and say, who was the knucklehead that did that? So we tried. I think sometimes that may paralyze us a little bit, so we get a little hesitant to move forward. But I think you have to, at some point, I think you're all leaders, and at some point you make a decision. And as long as you're careful and you've thoroughly vetted it and you have that confidence, then it's all systems go. And I think back then, why did we stick the sewer plant on the water? Well, was the 50s, I guess back then they thought it had to be on the water. Turned out it didn't have to be. But that's a whole nother project that's probably not going to, moving that would be, a project in itself. But certain things you can correct. This you can correct.
I couldn't be in more support of changing the mistake that was made in the past, and I would hate to be known as the group of knuckleheads that had the opportunity to change this the situation and move those garages out of there and return the use of that to the town. So I couldn't be in more support of this project.
Thank you.
Perry?
Yeah, I'm a little confused. The $1 million is really for the Baldwin Park portion of this. Is there not a request for the transfer station part of this, or is there?
There is.
There is.
It's under 321 on page 5. A little bit further out, starting next year,
Oh, so it's in next year's,
beginning in next year.
beginning in next year?
Yes, it takes some time to do it.
Okay, so then we get to the sinking of this. You've got $10 million in 27, 28 under the Baldwin Park portion. Would that include demolishing the Parks and Rec building before you've done the planning of Holly Hill? I mean,
Yeah, the sequencing.
sequencing is important.
Yeah, originally that was all included in that, and I believe it was 11 at the time. Again, that we have to appropriate the whole thing, but that will come down. That will come down through a public-private partnership.
Right, but how do you sequence the building portion of this and the transfer station?
We may need to talk to Public Works and, maybe we rejigger where the numbers are to make sure that we go in sequence.
Okay,
Yeah, so yeah, I see what you're saying, because.
So you might
Maybe-
need to take that $10 million and spread it out a little bit to match
question.
what will happen at Holly Hill.
okay, maybe you could clarify that for us before we
Yeah.
get to
Yeah.
decision day would be helpful. And then, is your new task force for, and I'll go into a little history. You know what that building used to be? Arch Street?
Warehouse,
I was told it was a stable originally,
that's even more than 50 years ago.
more than 50 years ago, yeah.
Barn,
It was a barn.
the barn.
Yeah. That's, hay up in the upper levels and horses down below. So anyway.
I don't remember that, Harry.
I've been around here a long time. But is the task force going to have any input on the park renovation?
No, but it's fun, it's a good thing, it's
There's some
funny.
synchronicity here.
Well, funny you say that. So the architect, I don't want to mention him now, but Elliot knows him well. He talked about taking advantage of the park and marrying it. So, for example, if there's a concert there, is there a way, it's on the water, it's a beautiful interior with bricks, so everybody loves brick
Yeah.
interior. However, you probably need a little bit more glass in there to see the views. And you could envision, Joe Kelly's singing at a concert, he's boxing there like he did a couple of years ago, and you could have like an open glass thing there to look at that, and maybe have events where that's actually a VIP ticket or something. You could have a little patio out there, a little deck. There's so many opportunities that, it's above my pay grade, but this fellow was pretty excited about the opportunities that we could have there, marrying it, combining it with that beautiful venue there. So, yeah, you want to make it work with it and take advantage of the park and not just the water.
Right, thank you.
So just to follow on Harry's question, just so I'm crystal clear. So thank you for pointing to the Holly Hill on page 5. So the $1 million in the RSB is really for the design of the park, to update the.
Update plans.
And then 450 and 28 for Holly Hill is really to update the design that they currently have. Is that your understanding?
That's my understanding for the Holly Hill redesign.
Okay.
But,
Ideally, wouldn't you want to do that concurrently, or?
well, yeah, I'll talk to Jim and see what our sequencing could be.
Because one doesn't
do-
happen without the other, and I feel like that is going
Well-
to,
I mean, that's what we think is the best place for the tree, Park and Rec to go is up there. But, how much needs to be done at Holly Hill before we can move that tree building there? So, I will work with Public Works to,
and I just want to correct, I had said 26 million, this is 18.2, so I just wanted to correct my misstatement.
What
So-
line is that?
So on Project Code 321, waste disposal on page 5 of the,
Yeah, 18.2, I see it now.
there's a
Thank
lot
you.
of numbers in my head, so I should double check. I don't remember things as well as I used to.
No, but Madam Chair, you're right. We have had informal conversations about how can you start the project at the transfer station and allow for the movement of operations without having to do the whole thing first, right? Because it is a great question. It's confusing. So I think we'll come back to you with that, and we'll talk with DPW to come back with a more concrete plan for you to look at, because that would make the most sense is with the low-hanging fruit, what can you do first there? And can you do that part that would locate it first before you even finish the traffic flow and all of that?
And it's very timely because I believe our contract has been extended, but it is coming up for renewal
Yes,
with
yes.
our waste disposal contractor. And then I would just respectfully ask if you could just look at that number, $1 million for updating the plans that you have, and just see if there's any way to winnow that down, I guess I would say. Doug?
I guess I would just echo what both Harry and Laura, echo what both Harry and Laura said, which is one, the sequencing is confusing to me. It feels like our solve is to figure out if we're moving the trucks, where those go, and then we figure out what happens. And then the second thing that Harry also raised that I agree with is it feels like we have one task force and one project that are next to each other. And for those to be operating independently, it feels like you would want to have a more kind of strategic, coherent view across those two items.
Well, the building itself doesn't, I agree with what you're saying, but not necessarily. And we know where we want to do. So, I mean, there's no confusion what we want to, where we want to place the operations. I think what you need is clarification about what comes first. And so we need to absolutely provide that for you, and we'll get DPW to do that. But as far as the task force, the building's not going anywhere, so that they can proceed with that. And we're doing that now just so we don't lose any time on that. Also, we've found the building in a condition that's not great. So some of the locks have been damaged, and so we had to chain it. So we want to make sure that we get on with a public-private partnership for the building. And that we don't want to waste too much time, because there's a lot of potential, but that one's I think going to be done a lot quicker than some of these other bigger projects like the Havemeyer building. Also, I forgot to mention with the rink, there's a second part of that, is a flip, it's a new baseball field. And we don't have, too many baseball fields with dugouts and home run fences. And somebody had reached out to me that I used to coach the son and a long time ago, and said, why didn't you ask me about that? Because I would love to chip in. And that's a lot less. What are you talking about, $1 million for a baseball? That would be a public-private partnership too, and I forgot to, no one really talks about it because it's a lot less than a hockey rink, but that is good news, that we'll have a beautiful showcase baseball diamond, 90 foot, that we think would be paid for privately.
Harry?
Just one final footnote, one is, a compliment you on how you handled the exit of the teen center. That was a difficult time, and, your communications on that were terrific. I hope when you've charged the task force for that building, that one of the charges is to look for revenue opportunities. Yeah.
Yes, in the first meeting, it wasn't even an organizational meeting, it was just a get-together. We're going to meet again this Friday, but that came up.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? Sorry, that's all I had on capital. I don't believe there's anything in Havemeyer in fiscal '27. Am I correct?
Correct.
Is there anything else that,
I'd love to at some point if it could be moved up, but again, we don't want to lose the momentum we have with Havemeyer, but also if something happens there now, we're going to have to fix it. And that's money that's going to be not recouped. And just to be clear, I did go to see Dr. Jones and Ben a couple months ago, and I said, before we go down this path, do you guys, and I know the condition, but I said, are you committed to leaving? And they did say absolutely 100%. They want a new home.
is there somebody with a question over there? Somebody have a question on this side? Oh, Harry, go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of us went to a presentation by the police department recently, and one of the priorities that was identified was replacing the police boat 124. And that's not in this year's budget. Was that something that you removed? Because if we don't replace it until next year, we're going to push 3 years without that boat, and we're in the middle of doing major maintenance on the other 2 boats. So I just want to reconcile the priority of the police department versus you.
I'd have to go back and look at the original submissions to see if that was a this year request that I pushed out.
If you could, and then you get back to
Yeah.
us, that'd be great. Thank you.
All right, if there's nothing else on capital, going once?
Anybody over there?
Going
Oh, sorry,
twice?
Thank you.
Okay, then I'd like to move to operating, and what I'd suggest is we start with 105 on page 7 of the operating budget book, Office of the First Selectman. And then we're going to briefly go through other sections of general government. And Fred, I don't know that you need to be there for that second part, but I know Doug had some questions on 105, and I believe, Kate, you have some prepared answers. I mean, I don't know, Fred, if your budget's up 3.9%. I don't see, I don't think there's anything earth-shattering here, but if there's any comment you'd like to make. Otherwise, Kate can go right into it.
Do you want to ask the questions, or you just want me to read what you asked and give you the answer?
Either way is fine. Just walking through line item, just salaries budgeted up over 5%. What's going on there?
Right, so when the fiscal '26, the current year salaries were put in by the finance department in that budget, it was prior to HR making some of those. Oh, it was prior to HR having made some adjustments. It was also prior to my hitting my 6-month anniversary, and at 6 months, that people here are given a bump. So that's, and plus we have an employee, a union employee who's still in steps. So all those things combined are why it's up.
Got it. Sorry. The other ones that are just relevant. Just in understanding 51440, just the increase in budget there against that budget that's
51440.
rarely spent.
Okay, there isn't a 440.
Professional and other specs.
Oh, okay.
services.
Right, so that was,
sorry.
in this current fiscal year, we wanted to hire a consultant to basically work with Greenwich Communities to review the number of housing units that they own that get us points towards a moratorium on affordable housing. And so that's why the bump up from the prior year to the current year, that is currently ongoing. And then we kept it at that level because we need the flexibility to be able to hire consultants from time to time. So we had waited basically like several months to be able to start that project. We'd like the flexibility to be able to go and do that, hire a consultant for various projects.
Got it. And just to understand that, how far, like, has that been hired and is that being ramped up? The
Yes.
consultant around affordable
Yes.
housing? Okay. We can touch on the other ones offline. I actually had a broader question to something you referred to earlier. You mentioned, unuse of training budgets.
Yep.
Kind of across departments. Can you just quantify, the budget is X, we have been spending what % of X?
Oh, off the top of my head, no. I can just tell you, across the board, there'd be amounts of like $2,000, $3,000 in a department's budget that were not being utilized.
Get it.
And I think, my guess is, I was not here during COVID, but my guess is that it's kind of a post-COVID response where people stopped going to conferences and seminars during COVID and haven't really ramped that back up. And like I said, I believe that it's important that they do. I believe ongoing training, ongoing education for our employees is very important.
So I'm assuming that the Office of the First Selectman is working with Planning and Zoning on that project to understand the points for the moratorium? Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. But it was felt that it should be properly in this budget, not their budget?
It was, we were the ones who wanted it.
Okay.
Yeah, we think there may be more units there than was widely known, so they didn't have the wherewithal to really do this. We wanted to make sure that we're presenting the best possible picture to the state, because we're doing a lot of work. If we're doing it, we want to get credit for it, so that's why
Yeah,
we're
no,
doing
I think that's a really important project to quantify what we have, because we need to develop that new plan by, I guess we have a little time. Your TOO stays the same.
Yes.
I know you get a lot of requests from the public. Are you able to keep up with all of the constituent requests, all of the FOIA requests? I mean, I'm asking because we've got other departments that are asking for personnel to keep up with FOIA, so I don't know how.
Well, to our
how you
satisfaction or
funnel
to
it.
their satisfaction?
By whatever performance metric you want to measure, Kate.
It can be very slow. Right now, when I get an hour or two, I'm going through emails related to the rink committee. Started out with like 450 of them. I have to look at every single email to make sure that it falls within the request and make sure that it is not something that's protected by attorney-client privilege. So you're paying me a lot of money to do that, but we've got to do that because a person requested that. I'm certain that they're not happy that it wasn't produced, in a week. But we do our best. Our staff, Ken handles a lot of the FOI requests. IT does, they can narrow the search down for us very, pretty quickly, but it takes a lot of time. And it also takes educating the public as to what they are entitled. For example, we have to produce documents that answer the questions that they ask. We don't have to answer their questions, if you follow. And that can be, just even dealing with the emails can be time consuming. And, we've got nothing on the cops and what they have to go through with the FOIs.
Yeah, and their issue is, we voluntarily went for a request for the body cameras. Not that we had a problem here, we wanted to stay ahead of what was going on around the country, the same reason why we did the Citizens Review Board. And, no good deed goes unpunished, so of course, they get hammered all the time with these requests, and so you don't want to take a cop off the road just to do that. So that's why you see that asking for another person just for that. I think FOI is a great tool for Sunshine. I really do, and I support it 100%. But when it's either weaponized or it's used to send out just political messages. I got one this morning from someone who FOI'd our weekly list. Is that really what was the intent of the FOI? But it's the law. Until Hartford, amends that law, we have to comply with it, and it's frustrating. It takes a lot of man hours, and we even have to go up to Hartford a lot, and you'll have some of the highest paid employees in the town of Greenwich wasting a whole day up there, and often by the same people requesting things over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And there's nothing we can do about it. We vexatious requests. We can file complaints, but even those complaints take a long time to get responded to. But we're doing the best we can.
And I think one of the problems we run into is we provide the documents that they're requesting. They then say, well, you didn't give me everything. I know there must be more. And, how can you prove the lack, the non-existence of something? It's kind of hard.
So just so I'm clear on the process, you don't refer to the town attorney's office to deal with FOIA. You either Ken or yourself, depending on, I don't know if you tier the request or how you decide who's going to.
Well, we have to, so, we will review with the town attorney to make sure that what we are doing is compliant with the request. But they can't sit there, well, I don't think we want them to have to go through every email or do things. I suppose we could, but
I don't mean to probe too much into this, but just, as a board, we get FOIA requests too. So we were always told that IT would go through our emails
They
or
do.
town attorney would go through our emails, not that we necessarily have to go through. So I'm just trying to understand from a process standpoint.
so,
Because I do, your point about highest and best use of people's time, I want to be sure we're complying with the law, but also, is there a process that we can follow that?
well, when the request comes in
different.
for certain keywords, they might ask for all emails between the BET Budget Committee that reference the month of April. IT can go and take all those emails and pull out that. But somebody then has to go through it and make sure that there's nothing in there that we shouldn't be releasing because it would violate attorney-client privilege. So yes, I guess, we could have the attorneys do that, or the finance department could do that. But IT, that's not something that IT can get down to.
Sorry, can I just follow up on this? Can you just roughly quantify what % of your time is spent on FOIA requests?
No. This is an unusual one, and it's one I'm going through right now where, I'm the one handling it. So right now, I'm spending like an hour or two a day slogging through it. it cannot take priority, in my mind, over things like this. So it will be done as, as my time allows. Sometimes when you get one in, it might be intensive for a couple days. We try and get them out as promptly as we can because that's what the FOI law requires. But it's going to vary. With the police, I think you'll find when they come in to talk to you, when it's the body camera footage, that is extremely time consuming. Because you might have at a scene multiple officers whose cameras are all pointing at different things, and you have to redact. And so that's a lot of footage to go through.
So just to follow up on that, so just taking what you just said, so, call it 10% to a quarter of your day is spent dealing with this?
Right now,
Okay,
right now. Normally, no.
okay, thank you.
Harry?
Yeah, and somewhat in the same note, I want to jump to the police department because again, in that presentation, we heard that they were going to request 3 new positions. And all I see in the budget is an upgrade of a part-time police scheduling coordinator to full-time. I think it's, it's a minor change of 0.69 to 1. But, they did talk a lot about FOIA and needing more resources for FOIA. They talked about needing more resources for evidence. So what happened, similar question to the vote, where were the priorities here? And another perspective is DPW is being given a communications specialist, and they already do a great job in communications. I'm trying to reconcile all these priorities.
I did not reduce the police request for staffing,
You did not.
no.
So
So it might
they-
be just kind of hidden in the numbers.
Okay, so that'll be a question when police comes.
Yeah.
So no staffing requests across the board were reduced?
I don't think so. There weren't that many.
Yeah,
I don't believe I reduced any.
okay. Thank you.
I just have one more question on the 105. So the labor negotiator is outsourced,
Yes,
and the attorney fees for that effort, is that included in the $100,000 budgeted for attorney fees?
yes.
Okay. And is that, it's been flat for 2 years. Is that realistic?
Attorney fees?
Yeah.
That will vary depending on what's happening. So right now, we have 2 contracts open. So if the negotiations go well, we shouldn't need too much use of the attorney. But if we have, we go to arbitration, that will, bump that way up. The negotiator is a flat rate. That doesn't change. The contract does expire this year, so we're looking at what we're going to do moving forward. But, yeah, the attorney can fluctuate.
So just to clarify something from earlier, and I don't think I asked the question right. 51450 is relates to the investment in identifying affordable housing, and then 51490, that
That's the
200,000.
labor negotiator.
Labor negotiator is 51490, and then 51400 is just outside counsel needs that
That is an
fluctuate.
attorney, yeah, that's outside labor counsel.
Okay. I don't have any other questions on 105. Does anyone else?
Yep.
No? All right, so we're trying to do something this year, which is perhaps not see every department that we've seen in the past.
Okay.
But we certainly, have reserved the right to call them in if they need to. So what I'd like to do is just touch on a couple of the departments in general government to see if you have any thoughts.
Okay.
Representative town meeting is down a little bit. I don't have anything there. Ethics and Historical District Commission, I don't have anything there. Emergency operations, that is down a little bit. That's a really important element of our operations here. Are we comfortable with that
Sure. So-
negative 0.1%?
The reduction there is, if you look at the data word processing supplies, they never spent it. Never, ever. So we told them, we cut it.
No data for you. Okay. I'm going to move right along, so if anyone has a question, just interrupt. Purchasing, it's up a little bit, but I think that's just contractual salaries. Is
We
there any
have people
comment
in
on
steps there, yeah.
people on steps? Purchasing an administrative services center is kind of a package deal. We are seeing Mary Pepe later this afternoon. Anything on probate court to highlight?
No, we have to pay we have to pay those costs, period. State law.
Register of voters, up quite a bit, actually.
So we have a gubernatorial election that will fall within this budget. They also assume a primary in the budget, and they are looking at higher costs for some of their servicing of their equipments, the voting machines. I think that the biggest thing is the professional services and
When I look at this, versus 2 years ago when it was a presidential election, it's still a substantial increase versus a presidential. I don't know if we had a primary back then or not, but, it just seems kind of out of line.
in-
There was a primary. I remember I worked the polls at Glenville.
If I may, early voting.
Early
wouldn't
voting
that
is a
has a lot
huge
to do with
cost.
this? Because I had to stand out there for 2 weeks straight. It was a pain. So I can imagine for all the workers as well.
Yeah.
So, and I did speak to Fred DeCaro
We had
about
that
this.
2 years ago.
Did we?
For the presidential, I think we did.
I'm not sure we did.
I don't think we did.
No,
No?
this is all new.
not a presidential.
There's a lot more staff
Oh, I thought we
hired.
did.
Yeah,
So
we
maybe
did.
that's part of it.
We
I
did,
believe that's
yeah.
it,
thought
yeah.
so.
Yeah, we did.
According to Fred DeCaro, I spoke to him about just this issue, and it was early voting was the issue.
So, but it's regular course of operations.
Yes.
I mean, I
nothing
understand
changing.
early voting is definitely
Yeah,
10 days of,
And apparently, I mean, it's not just Greenwich, around the state, a lot of registrars said afterwards that 2 weeks was probably a little too much, that they could have done this in a week.
Yeah.
So you may, hopefully, they'll be on the same page, and maybe that will be amended.
and the security cameras for the ballot boxes, is that in this budget, or do you know if that's in a different
I think
budget?
that's in the police budget.
Is that in the police budget?
The
I know
police
they do the
budget
town
handles
hall.
our security cameras.
Okay. We're going to hear about finance, we're going to hear from IT, we're going to hear from the assessor. Board of Assessment Appeals is down, even though we do have a reval. Anything on tax collector, they're down a little bit. Not planning to see them.
No,
We will see law department, town clerk, 3% increase. Nothing stands out to me there. Anything that
No,
we need
they're-
to be aware of?
their biggest increases in steps for employees.
Planning board, we're going to see them.
We are going to see Board of Appeals.
No, we're going to see planning and zoning commission, so we're not seeing board of appeals. Is there anything
Because
on
I-
board of appeals?
But just note that they're going up on a,
Oh, yes, we are, because they're going up on a position.
they're going up on a position, but with very little salary impact. So I was a little
They went up
surprised
on the
at that.
position last year.
Oh, it was the interim.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. That's good clarification. We are not seeing conservation right now or inland wetlands. Is there anything, is it a bump in salary, but is that just contractual and
That's just
steps?
contractual. What I will tell you, in the capital plan, there's a small amount of money, especially compared to things like a hockey rink, for basically to allow them to move quickly if there's land that comes available where we could look to purchase it, that would be beneficial to the town from a conservation point of view. So I would encourage you to consider that. It's not a large amount of money.
And then commissioning on aging, I was a little concerned because it's a very small increase, just 0.7%. Is there, and right now,
So-
we're not planning to see them. So I know they're doing a lot with the Wallace Center, so if there's anything there you want to highlight for us, please do.
So there are two things. Number one, they're planning to do major renovations. So their plan for fiscal '27 is not a full year of operation. because they will have to relocate while they're doing all the renovations. So their operations will be scaled back. But also, looking at the food budget, how they did that, they have outsourced their food service. They were budgeting the gross cost of the food, but what they actually do is they pay the net cost. So the provider invoices them for the cost less the revenue. So that's why you see a significant reduction in their food budget, but that's the reason why, is that they'd been budgeting the gross cost of the food when actually they're paying the net. Not a fan of the accounting, but that's the way it's going, so.
Understood.
That makes sense. Doug? you have a-
Sarah, can you just, you mentioned that they're going to be relocated for a portion of next year. Just, is a solution been found there? And
So I'll take that. They were going to go to the teen center before we discovered the condition of it, so we're actively looking for another spot for them for the next year.
Is this for programming as well as administrative? Or I know we do some programming
Yes.
throughout town. Okay.
Yes, so
let's
I
just
think
clarify
the
for the
6
public.
employees, we can, we can separate that, but the programming, we need a spot for their programming, so that's, time is of the essence, so we're looking there, but again, we had factored in them going to the teen center before we looked in again and found out just what the condition was.
Sorry, and just how long do you think the process will be to come up with a solution?
We're looking ASAP. We don't have that much time, so we're looking, and Lori's concerned, Lori Contadino, so we're trying to find a spot for them that's convenient for the seniors for their programming.
Leslie, did you have a question?
I did have a question. The, Kate mentioned that they're going to be moving and, they'd only be operating 6 months. Would that reduce the food budget? Because will the cafeteria there be open during this period, or will it also close like the rest of the senior center? Wallace Center, sorry.
So they had, the request for food was actually, I believe, 80,000. And I reduced it further based on the fact that they were budgeting gross and not net. So yes, it is expected to be off some because of the relocation.
Thank you.
And then if you don't mind, I'd just like to talk a little bit about external entities. So we have TAG, Channel 79, Grease Museum, and GEMS. And then I'm forgetting the initials, Southwestern Regional, isn't that Westcog now?
Yes,
Western-
no,
No, is that the same?
it's not, that's the dispatch, Southwestern Regional Communications.
Okay. So I just quickly, we usually impose conditions on TAG and GEMS. Is there any update on TAG? Do you happen to know if they got that grant, if they paid their fuel bill?
They have paid their fuel bill.
Okay, good. Good.
They're
All
up
right.
to date on the fuel bill. I got that just yesterday.
And then just for the benefit, just to remind us, if you recall, or otherwise you can get back to us, what is the agreement, and is it in writing, about the town's responsibility to contribute to the Bruce Museum and GEMS? I know GEMS does their own capital raising, but what's our responsibility?
I don't know what their percentages, I forgot.
Yeah, I'd have to get back to you on that. The Bruce Museum, I really don't know. What I can tell you is that they've complained that our percentage of their overall costs that we cover has gone down, but that's because they put on that big addition, and.
So one of the things, there are a couple capital requests in here, and so one of the things we have is the original agreement, the amendment agreement. It's a little hard to follow, I have to be honest, so maybe we need a refresh on that, if that's something that you could put on your to-do list.
Yes.
Yeah, they did a great job with that renovation, but once they did it, they came to us and said, well, it costs more money to operate this building, but that wasn't the town, that was their decision to make, so I thought that was something that, was not I don't think that was our responsibility, because they willingly did that project. And we were super supportive of them, And I forget what the percentage is, but that was an issue about a year and a half ago, I think.
Yeah, I think just for clarity's sake, so we understand what is the taxpayer's responsibility and what is the Bruce Museum's obligation. Obviously, it's a wonderful amenity in our town, and, we just, I think, need to be clear, because we don't have to go through this every budget cycle. What is our responsibility? What is their responsibility? Harry?
Yeah, and I thank you for bringing that up because it reminded me of the same thing. But to expand on it a little bit, there's a future capital request for retaining wall maintenance. And the way that some of us have read the current agreement is that that ought to be part of their responsibility and not the town responsibility. So that's in a future year. But in a current basis, there's a request for security cameras that are more than just the original building and includes the first edition that was done years ago. So I don't know if, are we responsible for, things in that first edition also? I get the latest edition should be totally theirs, I agree. But, we need some clarity of a couple of these things if you could.
Sure.
But I think a total look is a real good idea. Thank you.
And the wall, okay.
Anyone else? Doug?
But not on the external entities, if people have questions on that.
Let's just stick to that for 1 minute. Leslie?
Yes, I just wanted to comment. Also, the other issue is that we're now paying insurance, property insurance on the full facility, which is, grown by multiples. When we originally did the amendment to the agreement, it was really to be for the construction period and then renegotiated. As an example, we understood why we might continue I was the chair of the law committee, that's how I know. And I do think it needs to be reviewed, but what happened is, it was to be renegotiated after, say, a 3-year period. Don't hold me to the number. And once the construction was completed and that they would take over the property insurance and some of these other things, and the wall is definitely their responsibility. But what happened was, when that agreement went to the RTM, they said, oh, gee, why do it for 3 years? We should do it for whatever the length of the rest of the agreement was. So it all got extended. I do think that we should go through, finance should go through and look at all aspects of the agreement and make sure we understand. So I just wanted to add this additional color. Thank you.
I think we'll add this to our to-do list. And then just on GEMS, do we have a written agreement with them, or is it just what our practice is? Do you happen to know?
We have a written agreement with them for the provision of emergency management services, but I'd have to look and see if there was a further written agreement.
Again, just because, we're, and again, an extremely valuable element of our emergency operations. It's just, I kind of want to codify what our understanding is. I know they have revenues that they bill, they do their own capital raise, so I don't know if we're providing, the net after revenues for their budget or a percentage of, and I just think we should know that. So again, every year, we don't have to, there's clarity.
Yeah.
Anyone else have questions? Anyone from the side? Mr. Weisbrod? Use a mic, please.
On the open space fund, 75,000, is this something we should be expensing and also what's the size of the overall fund? Because we've been doing it, it's a great thing, but the issue is, should we expense it and how big a fund is it?
I don't think there's a fund that exists at this time, and should be expensed. I would turn to Joan. I could give you my opinion, but it's her job, so.
Bless you.
I would, if,
It's 25,000, right? And it's for
75,000. If we were purchasing land, I would capitalize it as part of the purchase of a land. So, but that's just, my accounting days are behind me.
We used to do that in tangent with the land trust.
And then I just have a logistics question. I know there was the submission for the libraries. I think we didn't get the right one in the budget book, and I think that's right, Agnes. I don't know how you want to handle this, because if there's a way to substitute what they actually submitted, so we don't have to vote on the changes, because we have to vote on what's in the budget book.
I can send a replacement page.
Okay. And if the bottom line, just to be clear, the bottom line hasn't changed, it's just some of the allocations in the
Right,
accounts
right.
changed. So rather than going through the exercise of just, fixing it to the way they
Yes,
submitted
yes,
it, we're
I'll
just going to
send
get
it.
us, okay, so if we could do that, because we are, at this point, not seeing the libraries as well.
It's fine with me.
Um,
Yeah.
But I just want to be sure we're operating with the same information. Doug?
Yeah, just going back to the top, as you said, you see all the operating budgets and consider expenses, look at past trends and whatnot. Can you comment on your process as it relates to non-tax revenue for the town? Specifically fees that are charged by various departments and whatnot, and the degree that those are revisited to reflect inflation, change of costs, et cetera.
I don't look at the revenues.
Okay.
Well, the Board of Selectmen does Parks and Rec fees, right,
Yeah, I
as
was
an
gonna say,
example, so.
we do, for example, they'll come to us every year with a fee schedule, and they'll look at hundreds of various fees, and when they ask for an increase, which is not often and not on all of them, we'll ask questions, and like just this year, a couple people and organizations had issues. I went back to Parks and Rec, they made good points, and they modified it. So that's an example of Parks and Rec on a yearly basis.
And the DPW is looking at the building fees, evaluating whether or not their fees, the current fee schedule is appropriate. But typically, I'm not looking at their non-tax revenue.
Understood. My one suggestion, I understand there are smaller departments, and we're actually meeting with several of them to address, but I believe it would make sense for the town as a whole to review kind of our entire fee structure and have an understanding of it, because I know because there are certain departments that haven't changed fees for certain services in decades, if not longer.
So then you get into the real nerdy stuff. I think that's a great idea. I think you need to have a discussion. What do you want to accomplish from those fees? Which fees do you want to be supporting, fully supporting the services? Which ones do you think should be just simply offsetting the fees? That's a really great discussion for even your full board to have and develop a policy on where you want to go.
So I would just add that, I guess it was 5 years ago, when tipping fees came up because of the increased costs of waste disposal. So that was an area where we did have that discussion, and an in-depth discussion.
Yes.
Harry?
Yeah, it reminds me, I had a note on the sewer department, just on the fees for septic tank disposal collector permits. I believe this is for when the tanks come up to the headwaters and dump their contents. It used to be 408,000, it went down to 250, and it's flat at 250. I don't know if that came before you as a fee review, but I have a hard time believing that 250,000 is enough to cover the cost, because their disposal costs are going up dramatically also.
Oh, okay. You need me?
You can be excused.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
your
Thank you,
time. I
Fred.
appreciate it.
I mean, I'll ask DPW about this also, but I'm just sort of calling it to your attention.
Yep.
All right, I think I've exhausted all my questions that I had. Thank you, everyone. Is there any other question from the side or from the Budget Committee? Kate, thank you so much. Wendy, thank you. I thank First Selectman Camillo for his time this morning. As always, it's a long month. We may come back to you with additional questions or clarification, but thank you very much for your time and effort in putting forward a budget.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you.
So I think with this, we are running ahead of schedule a little bit. It's 10:40. We are scheduled for a executive session with the Law Department at 11 to go through pending legal claims. And then at noon, we're having lunch, so we're planning to resume at 12:30 with the Head of Human Resources, Mary Pepe. So the purposes of GCTV, I think we're going to log off now. We'll take a break and have our executive session, and we'll be back at 12:30.